So, I've already done a pair of full body tutorials, but the first one is aged, to say the least, and the second one didn't really go over a front-facing pose. So I've been wanting to update with a front-facing pose for a while. I considered doing the normal side reference pose too, but I just think that the other tutorials that I have up already cover that, and I don't really want to overcrowd. Anyways, I figured this was an appropriate time to release another tutorial because 3 years ago today marks the first release of a different tutorial series I did, where I went through how to draw each tribe. Those 10 videos detailed my process for drawing 10 tribe bases, which I actually have for sale over on my store right now, and to celebrate 3 years since I started working on those, they are going to be 50% off, today only, so if you want to get 10 bases for all the tribes, that pack is $5 right now instead of 10. Or, if you don't want my silly bases, keep watching and learn how to draw your own. Now, one thing I over-relied on when I was younger was the symmetry tool when I did front-facing poses. At the time, it was pretty helpful with a pose I was very uncomfortable with, but it's been a long time since I've used the symmetry tool for that purpose, because you don't actually want your drawing to be perfectly symmetrical. Normal faces aren't ever perfectly symmetrical, first off, so it's weird. But also, there's probably always going to be at least some angle to how you're looking at your character, so the features will never be exactly centered like we're looking at them head on. Anyways, the point of that is, even though it's more work to draw the entire thing, it can be hard to get the face especially to look right, you'll thank yourself later because the final result will look much more natural. So to start that off, I'm still using circles for the head and snout again, but this time they're aligned in front of each other. From there, I usually get down the silhouette of the head, starting with the jaw and then adding horns. I like to make the edge of the horns just a tiny bit wider than the edge of the jaw. Not a lot, a tiny bit. If I was drawing Clay or Byrne or someone else who I wanted to give really bulky body language, I'd widen that jaw up a bit more. You'll notice that even though these horns are curved, they aren't sticking straight back. They are curved ever so slightly to the side. This, A, makes it easier to draw curvy horns, and B, is because, again, we aren't looking exactly straight on at the dragon. The neck is another spot you don't want to draw straight. If you just draw a straight neck where the thickness never changes, it looks very lifeless. Instead, remember which side your dragon is slightly tilted to, in this case my right, and curve the neck ever so slightly in accordance with that. Also, I like to make it just a little bit thinner in the middle than where it connects to the jaw and widens more dramatically for the shoulders. A sort of V shape on the bottom completes that underbelly. For the legs, I want you to add those circles again to show yourself where the shoulders start. Again, though this is a front-facing view, it's not fully straight on in the middle. I have her tilted to the side a little bit. I find it's usually easier to start with the leg that's on the far side. You can do both legs straight, but I sometimes feel like that looks a little stilted, so I usually lift one of the legs and add some movement into that scene. In this case, the closer leg is lifted a little because I was having trouble getting the right angle on that, so instead of settling for an angle I didn't like, I just changed the drawing. For the next part, I'll draw the back first. The wings will likely end up covering the back, but that's okay. I just want to show myself where the hips are, and by extension, where those back legs are. You can see here where I put this big circle. This is where the hip will start. For sitting poses like this, I don't fuss about the back legs too much. An easy shape like this does me just fine. You're really just playing around with angle and placement to figure out what looks good for the drawing you're doing. You can see in this sketch I actually show you 2 different ways that I'll draw those back legs. One where it's folded directly in the front, which I didn't like, and one where it kicks out to the side more. You can do whatever works best for you. I don't have one or the other that I like best. After that, I cleaned up a few lines before moving on to the further back leg. Since I've already got one kicked out to the side, I'll tuck this one in a little closer. Not gonna lie, this pose is directly inspired by cats and the funky way they sit. That's why she's kind of sprawling around. Also, I think it looks very natural and easy, and using cats sitting for a reference for this type of pose really helps from the shoulders down. Cats are hard to use as refs for the shoulders up because they have very short necks, and dragons don't. But for this specific pose, they're handy. Now, wings can go so many ways. You can have them out, you can tuck them in, you can just do anything. Here's a couple of examples showing what I mean by this. Next is the tail. You can see here in red, I show how it kind of swoops down from the back and the underbelly where it was hidden by the legs. This tells me where it's going to come out. I have it curving to the right because the whole body is kind of curving that way, but the tail is the most versatile part of that drawing. You can try all kinds of different stuff with it. And last but not least, and certainly not easiest, the face. This is the toughest part because it's a make or break quality of any drawing, how the face looks. First, I cleaned it up a little so that I could see what I was doing, finish out the horns and the spines. Then I'll add the top of the snout so that I know where the eyes and the mouth go. She's got a flat nose, but remember, some dragons have spines that go there. I shoot to get the eyes about in the middle of the face so there's the same amount of room above and below them. The mouth depends obviously on emotion, but I generally draw happy dragons, so smiles for me. I like to add in these two little teeths in my drawings, and I put them right on the edge of the snout, so that kind of turns it into a box. Then it's just time to roughen the rest of your details before you do your line art. For most of this stuff, it's just about stopping and thinking where that would go and how it would look. Spines, for instance, are nearly hidden. Frankly, they probably ought to be completely hidden if I was drawing this strictly realistically, but I find they look rather bald without any spines or frills or anything. So I usually add just a few poking out simply for aesthetic reasons. Also, I found that scale detail can really help show which direction your legs are facing. For instance, the back legs have C-wing markings on them, and you can really see how they help define which side of the limb you're looking at. So that's another chance to add in some helpful detail. Now, I think that'll wrap it up. I feel a little better about finally doing one of these that's updated with my newer knowledge and experience. Now, I'm not incredible at writing tutorials. I forget what things people do and don't know, and my art style changes all the time, so it's hard for me to pin down my process sometimes because it kind of jumps all over the place. Biggest tips: use circles to show where your body is. Let your sketch be messy, don't waste your time cleaning it up. As long as you can tell what's going on, you're good, and try to think about the direction you're facing and how things would look from that angle. That'll help you puzzle out how to draw certain things. And as always, use references. Seriously, nobody sprang from the womb a fully formed artist. We all learn by watching what works and copying that. If you want to reference my art to see how to draw a certain pose or angle or whatever, go for it. Obviously, respect artist boundaries, but there's no harm in looking at good art and trying to learn from it. If y'all enjoyed this tutorial, please leave a like or a comment. If you didn't, I have others. Give me a second chance. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your drawings, and have a blessed day.